Hi all, my name is Tracy Sheeran. I'm the Managing Director of Digital Learning here in Executive Education at the Yale School of Management. On behalf of Exec Ed, welcome and thank you for taking your time to join us for the introduction to Yale CPWA prep course called Wealth Management Theory and Practice. This is one of two financial certification programs we offer. It's modeled after our successful CIMA online program called Investment Management Theory and Practice. A few housekeeping notes. Throughout the webinar, please engage, ask questions. To ask questions, use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can submit the question to either me directly or to everyone, but we encourage you to submit to everyone because there's probably someone who has a similar question in mind. We'll hold questions along the way, but do our best to answer them all. Please use the chat for technical issues. Now to introduce our program director of this program. The program director, Jim Dobbs, is CPWA certified. He is also CFP and CIMA certified. He was a financial advisor for 25 years and ran his own RIA practice before retiring from it and to build his thriving financial education company. Jim has worked with various certifying bodies and universities over the last 20 years to help build and manage financial certification programs. He has extensive experience with Investment and Wealth Institute, IWI, and he personally helped create the CPWA certification and has served IWI in several roles, including as chair of IWI's Technical Advisory Board. Jim directed and taught the classroom version of CPWA course for many years before bringing it his expertise and enthusiasm to Yale. Jim was instrumental in creating this course, so he knows it inside and out. So ask lots of questions. Please welcome Jim Dobbs.
Well, thank you very much, Tracy. Can you hear and see me okay?
Yep, all set.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, welcome everybody. So we just want to walk through the CPWA certification a little bit and then spend most of the time going through the program that we've set up at Yale. You have a couple of choices. We certainly want to get you to register for the program at Yale if it's the right fit for you. And I think at the end of this hour, you should have a pretty good idea of whether this is a good fit for you. But again, we'll start with the certification itself. I would imagine there are some of you on this meeting who aren't quite sure if CPWA is the right designation for you, or is that the right one to do next in terms of where you are in your career and your job responsibilities. So we'll tackle that a little bit as well. Yeah, go ahead and just fire those questions in. I'll stop several times along the way. Tracy will stop me if she needs to, if she sees lots of questions. This is really for you guys, just to get your arms around the certification and our program at Yale. Okay, so first point of order, in case you didn't know, although I hope most of you do. So Tracy mentioned IWI, Investments in Wealth Institute. They are your certifying body. We're not a certifying body here at Yale. We provide you an education course and we provide you test prep. I think that's one of the things that makes us a little bit unique in this certification. So that's our role. In terms of going for candidacy, applying for candidacy, passing your background check, all that fun stuff, you'll do that through IWI. If you have not been to their website recently or never, you'll definitely want to go. Got the URL here, easy enough to Google as well. And I bring that up because not only are you going to be responsible for communicating with them as you move through the certification process and after you earn your certification, but they've got a lot of great resources. It's what drew me to them about 20 years ago. They just always had deeper, more thought-provoking, a little bit academic conferences and content. They have 2 journals. And so that just drew me in a lot of years ago, and I think you might appreciate that. You can see a little bit from their infographic in terms of, you know, how many people they have. I believe it's now 20,000 members and the 30,000 that come to the website to learn on a regular basis. So check them out if you haven't already. All right, I did want to mention they're still offering scholarships. We don't have anything like this at Yale for this or the SEMA program at this point, but IWI does. And as you can see there, they're fairly substantial at 1 to 5,000. I'm not telling you what to do, but if it were me and I thought I even had a chance of getting one of these scholarships, I would spend the 10 to 15 minutes to do their online application. The application for scholarships is much quicker and shorter than your candidacy application, but you want to do this first. You want to apply for a scholarship through IWI, see if you get one, and then do your candidacy application, because at that point you would have a code or something. You'd put that in the application to get the discount. So anyway, just a heads up there, just in case you might be eligible. All right, I did want to take a quick look. Obviously, there are more than just these 4 certifications out there in financial services land, but I did want to bring these up. These are 4 of the better known ones. These are definitely the higher end, more elite certifications in terms of the process. 3 of these, CFP, SEMA, and CPWA, are all accredited at the highest level, and there are only about 5 or 6 that are in the financial services landscape. And then CFA, because a lot of you know that one as well. Now, we're here to do CPWA, and that's Certified Private Wealth Advisor, of course. So that's really not meant to be a competitor to CFP. All but one of us on the original committee who created the first idea of CPWA, we're all CFP designees. It's just we were to a point in our career, and this was, I don't know, 15, 17 years ago, something like that. And the idea was, well, we got CFP a while ago, and it really didn't help us in particular with certain areas of our practice. Like our clients are now worth 5, 10, 20, $30 million or more. They're selling businesses for tens of millions of dollars. They have stock options or subsequently concentrated stock positions for 5, 10, $20 million. And we just didn't feel like we got what we needed in our CFP training to be able to handle those types of clients. So it really created a need to do a search and see what was out there. We didn't see anything that we thought was very rigorous and covered the topics and the challenges that we had seen in our own practices. So that's why CPWA came about those years ago. Personally, I think for most of you, not all of you, and this could create questions, go ahead and ask them. If it's too personal or too detailed, you're going to see my contact information a few times. Feel free just to reach out to me. I'm happy to have a phone call with you for 5 or 10 minutes to kind of walk through these things. But I think ideally for most of you, you have CFP or CHFC or something comparable before you do CPWA. CPWA should be considered more advanced. Not that CFP is beginner level. I would say a lot of it is beginner to intermediate, but we're going to kind of pick up as if you have a fair amount of knowledge already when you begin CPWA. So if that creates questions in your mind, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and reach out to me and we can have a quick call to kind of walk through what your background is and where I think you might land in all of this. SEMA, our sister program that Tracy mentioned, is just investments. So we're doing private wealth, which is kind of an extension of financial planning, but for high net worths right now in CPWA. SEMA is just all investments. So it's a different kind of program in that it's more narrowly focused. It goes really, really deep in investments, much more deep than we're going to go in CPWA, much deeper than you probably went in your CFP studies, but not as deep as CFA and not as quantitative as CFA. I think CFA is outstanding. If you're ready to go all in, it takes about 4 years. Less than 10% who start CFA complete the process. But if you really want to be an institutional fund or money manager, think managing $500 million or $1 billion in a fund at Merrill Lynch or Vanguard or Fidelity or iShares or wherever. Or if you're going to be a securities analyst where you're really crunching data, you're looking through those financial statements every day, and that's your job, then I think it's CFA and you want to get started on that as soon as you can. It just takes so long. But as you see here, SEMA and CPWA don't take as long. Now, I do want to mention, don't think that, oh, well, they're just not as hard. No, these are very hard. There's just not as much content. There's not as much content in SEMA versus CFA, as I just kind of explained. And then on CPWA, it's kind of like CFP now what? It's CFP, and now we need a deeper dive for the challenges of your high net worth clients. So there's clearly not as much material in CPWA than CFP. I would say the test, the CPWA exam, is a little harder on a question by question basis than CFP. It's just CFP covers so much material that some people would say that it's a little harder in that regard for CFP. But I think the difficulty of the questions are certainly a little harder with CPWA. So hopefully that was somewhat clear and I didn't just muddy the water. But if you have questions, feel free to just shoot them over there to Tracy, and we'll tackle those in a few minutes. All right, so there are some prerequisites according to IWI, your certifying body. You need to have a bachelor's degree from an accredited university. If you don't, there are exceptions. You can have one of these. I think I've got all of them. It's in the candidate handbook, so you can pull that off the website while I'm rambling on here and see. But I think I've got all the designations and certifications in lieu of a degree if you don't have a degree. Need to pass a FINRA background check. For most of you, that's just your U4. So remember when you're doing all your compliance and you have to check the boxes. Did you get into trouble here? Did you get into trouble there? No. Hopefully all those boxes are no. It's that kind of background check. They are going to match your background check up with your application. So make sure those are congruent in terms of all your answers. And you do need 5 years of experience in the financial field. Now, it does not have to be serving high net worths exclusively. So that's nice. It doesn't all have to be wealth management or financial planning. It could be investments or insurance. If you have questions, you'll want to reach out to IWI to see if your 5 years is all going to qualify. That being said, maybe most practically, you can start this certification process before you hit your 5-year mark. It's just one of the requirements to earning your certification. So you know, I probably wouldn't start at 1 or 2 years because this is advanced. But if you're 3 or 4 years in and you want to go ahead and get through the curriculum and pass your certification exam and then just wait to use the marks when you hit your 5-year anniversary, that's fine. We always have a handful of people each year who are doing that. All right, the certification process is pretty simple, so I'll kind of go through this pretty quickly. I mentioned an application a couple of times. So, and actually, there could actually be a 1A and a 1B. The 1A would be go ahead and apply for a scholarship if you think that you might qualify. 1B would then be go ahead and submit your certification application, and they'll go through the background and all of the things I just talked about. Once you're approved, they reach out to us. You'll actually, by the way, you'll check a box on which program you want to choose. So if you're choosing the Yale online program, it's actually a drop down, I think, and you'll just choose Yale online program. And then once you're approved, they'll reach out to you and say, hey, Jim, congratulations, you're approved. You are now a CPWA candidate. And we've also just let Yale know that you chose them to go through their program and their test prep to get yourself through the certification exam. So that whole process takes about 2 weeks, give or take. It's a few days to a week for IWI to run your application through. And about the same for us at Yale. It's about a few days to a week, give or take, to get you approved and set up on our Canvas online learning management system. So you need to think about 2 weeks, give or take, to get through that whole process. Okay, so once you get into our program, you're going to go through 2 parts of our program. Part A is the course. Part B is the test prep. I'll walk you through those in a minute. Once you finish both of those, then it's time to go test, and I'll talk about your different options for testing in a few slides as well. And then finally, their last step is, okay, Jim, you've passed the certification exam. Great. Looks like you've finished everything. Sign your licensing paperwork, pay your initial certification fee, and you can now use the marks. And you'll once they get the signed documents back, you'll be good to go. So pretty easy process in terms of certifications. All right, now this is a big one. We'll do another slide or two, and we'll check with Tracy here in just a minute and see if you got any early questions. This one's really important, and I would not skim through this. There's a core topics list. It can be called candidate body of knowledge. It can be called all kinds of things, curriculum or curriculum outline, different designations call them different things. That being said, if you don't have a copy of the 4 or 5 color-coded paper with all the line items and the test weightings, go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll be happy either tonight or tomorrow morning to send you that. Or you can pull it off of our website or IWI's website. You just might have to hunt around a little bit. Maybe easier just to send me an email, and I'll be happy to help you out there. But this is important because, yes, this costs money. It's not crazy expensive, but it's not cheap. It is going to take your time, though, your energy, your effort. Think of the opportunity cost. You all are all super busy in your practices, in your job functions, and with your personal lives. Most of you have family and friends. So it's really an opportunity cost thing here in my mind. And I really want to make sure that the curriculum, the topics, the things you'd be learning each and every week are going to help you in practice, help you bring in new clients, help you serve those clients better, help you have more technical skills, help you with your confidence in working with CPAs and attorneys who are also working with your clients. So I think you want to go through the long one. As I've talked here, you've seen the kind of the big honeycomb picture that IWI puts out. The first one is the human element, and that includes ethics and their code of professional responsibility. Also behavioral finance. I think if you've been in the business at all, and I suspect all of you have to some degree, we all know that technical knowledge is critical, but if we can't learn to manage our own behavior and help our clients manage theirs, none of this really matters because they're not going to be very successful, nor are we, and they're not going to be clients for very long. So we've got to get a handle on that. Family dynamics is critical here in that if you've got a family and it's $5, $10, $50 million, and now you've got second generation of 3 or 5 kids, and now we've got 9 or 14 grandchildren. Well, when you throw money into that equation, then it gets even more challenging. So there's a whole section on family dynamics. That first bottom honeycomb, if you will, I guess those are honeycombs, is what you would think of in terms of the core technical areas for financial planning for high net worth or this certified private wealth advisor. So that's tax. And it's really not all the nuts and bolts. It's trying to get into the tax planning element, not so that you can be a tax specialist or CPA or pass that section of the CPA exam. It's just with the knowledge that these issues are going to be important for all of your high net worth clients. And you, like it or not, are going to be brought into meetings with your clients, CPAs and tax specialists. And you need to have a strong, firm understanding on these things to help your clients. One of the most beneficial parts of having this certification and just this knowledge when I was in practice for those 25, 27 years was coming out of the family meeting where we all met with the attorneys and the CPAs, and then going back to my office or to lunch or whatever, so that I could explain to them in layman's terms what just happened and all the recommendations and all the jargon that the other professionals were throwing around. You and I know we don't need to be using jargon with clients, but they don't know that. So just a debriefing. And if you don't have those technical skills, you're not going to be able to do that. So that's really the level we're trying to get you to. Portfolio management, just the investment section. Risk management, asset protection, certainly different for your clients that have a net worth of 200,000 or even $1 million versus 10, 20, or $50 million. So that gets its own section. And then we're going to really narrow down the technical and practical application for you working with business owners and executives. And then retirement's a little different on CPWA than CFP. In CFP land, I would say it's mostly about accumulation because we were trying to help clients get to retirement so that they could retire and actually leave their job and have enough money to make it the rest of their life at some standard of living they chose. But for this, and there's a little bit of that here, but most of this is on the backside. It's assuming these clients are worth 50 million, they're worth 10 million, they're worth 5 million, and that's going to be enough. So how do we optimize the distributions from all their different plans that they have from a tax perspective? How does asset protection play into that? What about timing and sequencing of returns within their investment portfolio? So all of that is really going to be the focus for retirement. And then last but not least, as you can fully imagine, charitable and estate planning are both very, very large sections in this curriculum. But again, my offer is go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll be happy to send you the long version of this so you can read line by line what you would be studying. And the crux of it is once you get through reading that, if you're like, oh yeah, most of that is right on the money, not all of it, but most of it, this would really help me in my practice, really help me raise the level of my service, then from a curriculum standpoint, this is right for you. But if it's like maybe a third of it, not even half of it is applicable, doesn't mean this isn't a great certification. It just means it's probably not right for you right now. And there may be better things for you to do to take the next step. So hopefully that was helpful. All right, I'm going to let you stare at that since I've been talking for a while. And Tracy, let's see if we've got any questions.
So you might cover this as you go over the structure of the course, but the question is, are there any live webinar sessions during the course?
Yeah, great question. So in the old days, in our beta years, yeah, we did that. And then now we have much larger groups of candidates in the program, in the two programs as well. We could have anywhere from about 800 to 1,000 candidates in the two programs in aggregate. Back in the old days, we might have 100 in each. And we would do those live sessions with myself for test prep or professors to do, technical work or whatever. And like 7 people would show up. 12 would be a big number, like huge. So we realized, you know what, the vast, and I mean overwhelming majority of our candidates through the years, they want to do this on demand. They want to do it when they want to do it, where they want to do it. And I'll talk about the logistics of that in a minute. So yeah, we really stopped doing the live sessions years ago as we realized it's a very, very small percentage that want to go through a program like this in a live way. So it's completely asynchronous in that regard. And I'll talk about the timing in a little bit, but hopefully that helps answer that question.
And another question just popped up. Will the content be available in a printable version?
Yeah, good question. So it is available in a printable version, if you will, but you're going to be the one that prints it out. So we don't create notebooks and what have you. There are about 2,500 pages of readings. That's just readings. That's not all your test prep material and your practice questions and mock exam and all that good stuff. That's not the lecture slides. So there's thousands of pages of content, but we've got it designed in Canvas to where everything is downloadable, savable, printable. I mean, you can download anything, even our practice questions. Now, the caveat is you can't share those with anybody. You're the candidate. It's just for you. But that being said, you can download, save, and print anything you want. So for example, some of the text readings, well, they may be 7 pages in a sub area that you're like, oh, that's really interesting. I'd like to read that tonight or later, whatever. Just print those out, save it to your hard drive. One of the chapters might be 70 pages long. Okay, well, I don't think I want to read that whole thing, or at least print it out. So I'm going to skim through it and find sections that I want to copy or save to my hard drive. That has been the better solution because they're just a massive amount of material in the program. There are some shortcuts for downloading so that you don't have to download everything individually. But even the videos are, the lectures and the test prep, even those are downloadable. I'll talk about that in just a minute. So hopefully that helps answer that question. Good question, though. Okay, is that it for now?
I think so.
Okay. All right, so you've stared at this a little bit, and I won't try to oversell you on the CPWA certification because it's accredited, because I was involved, because I think it's really, really high quality. Yeah, this is one of the 2 SEMA also being accredited that we've chosen at Yale to get in on. So I think the quality is really, really important. I think your certifying body is very, very important. That being said, there are a number of different reasons to do this. I already talked about your confidence and your technical skills and working with not only your clients and attracting prospects to come in to your client base, but also working with all the different specialists that you have to with a $20 million family or a $50 million family. Just think CPAs and attorneys alone. So that's really big. Higher compensation is a thing. And I would recommend, if you haven't seen it on IWI's website, it's buried a little bit. So you got to kind of thumb through a few pages under their CPWA certification dropdown. But they've got third-party research from Cerulli, IT Group. It seems like there's one more, where they look at a number of different things. Who are CPWA designees versus CFP designees versus people who don't have any designation, et cetera, et cetera. Where do they work? What are their job functions and responsibilities? How much money do they make? I think those are all helpful to help you determine if this is the right neighborhood, the right certification to have. I think for some of you, that actually might be helpful to show your boss or your supervisor. Maybe they're not all on board on this yet, or maybe this will help them get over the hump and say, yes, you absolutely should go for this. Maybe this will even help them get reimbursement approved at your firm. So anyway, I think there are reasons to show this to management. And obviously IWI did that with purpose. But what I'm happy about is, instead of tooting their own horn, they had third-party research firms do a lot of the groundwork. So I think that could be beneficial for you as well. All right, I think it's always important, no matter what program, for academic credit or not, this is not for academic credit, or designation versus certification, et cetera. I think you always want to know what your education or program provider is trying to help you with specifically. So there's a lot of metrics that we follow, but these are three of the biggest goals we have. And one is to develop and deliver comprehensive coverage of all the 500 core topics and subtopics. And as you get that 4 or 5 pager from me, you're going to see there's over 500 when you count the subtopics. There's easily over 1,000 when you count the subtopics. So we want to make sure we cover it in the right way. Now, we don't cover all of that in the education component, and then again in the test prep. A lot of that would just be redundancy. We don't need to do that. Some of it we cover more in education. Some of it we cover more in test prep. If we think it's really important, it's going to be in the education for sure, but it may not be in the test prep. You know, let's say subtopic number 391, we actually number them, is not tested. Like, I can't even remember the last time it's been tested. And I talk to candidates every single week who have taken the test just to make sure that we're covering what we need to and at the right level, that kind of thing. So number 391 is not going to be in the test prep, or at least I'm going to have it labeled there and say, hadn't been tested in forever. So just let's move on. And so that's where the test prep, I think, helps at Yale, in that you can narrow that list from 1,000 to 500 and really focus on what's been more heavily tested. But we're going to cover all of those things when you consider both the education course and the test prep. So that's really also bullet point number 3, just to make sure you really get up to speed and you're ready to take and pass this certification exam on your first attempt, which the vast majority of our candidates do. The one in the middle, though, is the one I get most excited about, because when I go to the conferences or see you guys out in the field and what have you, yes, we talk about, you know, how challenging it was, and you sure are happy that you passed on your first attempt and all that stuff, and that you're now associated with Yale and you have your CPWA marks. But it's most exciting to hear what you've done with this in practice. You were able to bring in 10 new clients in the next year, and they were all worth $5 million or more, or you got $5 million in assets under management for each of those next 10 clients, or whatever, or you were able to talk with attorneys at a deeper, more confident level. Those are the cool things. Those are the fun things that I really enjoy hearing from you. Like, how did it really impact you personally and in your practice? So those are definitely 3 of, if not the 3 big goals we have. in offering a program like this. All right, I've already kind of touched on this with the whole download, copy, save, and print thing. That being said, yeah, asynchronous, you're not traveling anywhere. You do it at home or in your office, whatever. And it's meant to be convenient, and it is all on demand for a few reasons, but I mentioned one of the reasons in terms of the live sessions just not being all that popular back in the beta testing. But you can really study whenever and wherever you want. The only thing you need to actually be online for, I mean, other than to download, copy, save, and print, would be to take some required tests we have for you at the course level, not your certification exam. I'll talk about that in a minute. But as you work through our course material, lectures, video lectures, we need to test you on those things before you can move on. I'll talk about that in a minute. But other than that, you could essentially download everything, like even the lectures, MP4, or just convert them to MP3 and listen instead of watch them, on the bus, on the train, in the car, whatever. So it's really meant to be maximum convenience. And that plus the asynchronous feature, according to the surveys that we ask you to fill out once you're finished, yeah, that's clearly always the number one or number two reason that people chose. Well, Yale prestige and credibility would be the other one. That's one or two. So yeah, a big deal. So we've really tried to, having done this for now between the two programs, coming up on 6,000 candidates over 7 years or something like that, really tried to make this work for the majority of you. There is a formula to it for sure. And I think we've got that down pretty tight. All right, this is a big one, study time expectations. Then after I do this, we'll see if we've got more questions. Looks like I think we may have some coming in. 100, 200 hours, that's very normal. Now that's a pretty big range, right? But if you've been in the business at least 5 years, if you have your CFP or CHFC, something comparable, you're probably closer to the 100 hours than the 200 hours. That being said, I'm not going to say we have real fat statistical tails, but we have noticeable statistical tails. And it's not uncommon for people to get through all of this, like log in first day and a couple months later and less than 100 hours of study time later pass their certification exam. But on the flip side, let's say somebody's 3 or 4 years or even 7 years into the business, but they have learning challenges, learning disabilities, attention challenges, or they're just not a good test taker. We all know people that just didn't test well. Doesn't mean they're not very successful in our business. Maybe they just weren't good test takers for some reason. It could take those individuals over 500 hours. Now that's actually less common than the 100 hours or less, but it does happen. And so I just want to draw your attention to it. It's all going to depend on these handful and other issues as well, right? Like how much experience do you have coming in the door? How much technical experience do you have? How much time have you spent with CPAs, attorneys, and others studying the legal ramifications? Think estate planning and all the rules that go along with all of those trusts that need to be considered with certain clients. The tax planning, pretty complicated at this level as well. Study habits is a big one, especially since COVID came about. We all are at home a bit more. We do programs. I mean, even at my senior age, I love to do these certifications just to stay sharp and keep learning. Study habits, that can be tougher now, right? If you're studying at home and the family's active, that can be really tough. This is a deep curriculum, and you need to be able to get in for 15 to 20 minutes minimum at a time. It's going to be really hard to dive in and do 7 minutes of really good study, because just clearing your mind of all the other thoughts and getting into tax code or complicated challenge of this client fact pattern where you got to consider all these variables, you really need to be focused. So study habits is a big one for sure. But I think one of the really important issues here is we didn't want to hang you up based on the cohort members. We didn't want it to be synchronous. We wanted it to be asynchronous. We wanted you to be able to move through as fast or slow with one exception I'll talk about in a second, as you want. So like if you want to fast track this, 14 days is the record. Now, I'm not putting that out there to challenge you so that you'll go, okay, I want to do 13. Maybe there's somebody out there, but I'm not doing that for that reason. But I am saying, look, 2 weeks, if you're really, really sharp and you've got a lot of experience, you might be able to do it in 2 weeks. That person was fully employed, but I got a feeling he didn't have any life outside of the business for those 2 weeks because he had to be studying the whole time. But anyway, so that's possible, but that's an exceptional candidate. But if you need to move slower, you can do that. And I didn't want the fast trackers to freak out all of you people that are like, well, I may not have a learning challenge or disability, but I want to be meticulous. When's the next time I'll ever be doing a course at Yale? So I want to soak it all up. I want to go methodically and not rush it. So I didn't want the fast trackers to be a problem for that group and vice versa. Didn't want the more methodical candidates to be frustrating the fast tracker. So you're going to work through this. Now we've got guardrails, best practices and tips galore at both the course and the test prep section, but it's going to be up to you to figure out how you want to move through quick or slow. All right, I'm going to let you study. It's not study, just read some nuts and bolts. And Tracy, let's see if we've got questions.
Yeah, so Jim, it's a follow-up really on the live session question earlier, but the question is, where does a participant ask questions when in the course of the course? Which I think is really, how do we provide support?
Yeah, great question. And that's so important that we beta tested that as well in the first year, or really 2 years. And we've got the formula for that. So I've got a whole slide in just a few minutes, just dedicated to where's my help? Like, you're going to be distance from us. It's a distance learning. It's meant to be self-learning, but we're not going to just leave you on an island. And so you've got resources. It's very, very important. So I'm going to show you those in just a minute. Great question, though.
I think that's it for questions right now.
Okay, so you stared at the nuts and bolts, about $7,300 if you don't get a scholarship from IWI. Again, not super expensive for a program like this or a certification like this, but it's not cheap either. So want to make sure that the certification and the curriculum are right for you. I've got the scholarships link there for you again, in case you need to be reminded to go do that. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you have actually gone and filled out the scholarship application in the first 12 slides. So good for you. Ongoing registration, that's part of the asynchronous feature, if you will. You're all different in terms of when you're busiest during the year. Having been in practice all those years myself, I knew that, look, administratively and in terms of leadership, and then when I was president of the company, there were certain things that were seasonal for sure. And I could largely predict, how that would impact my timing and my schedule. Now with my clients, yeah, good luck. No way. Because, you just never know who's going to call tomorrow with either really good news or really bad news. So I get it there. But I want you to be able to register and start the program when you look at your calendar and you go, well, you know what, over the next 3 to 6 months, that's fine. That's not any worse than any other time of the year. And that would be that would be kind of the flag would go up. Okay, this may be a good time to start. Now, given that we're in February for this webinar, this info session, if your firm is heavy into tax planning and compilation and return filing, well, you're probably not even on this Zoom session because of that. But if you are, this is probably not a good time. You want to clear April 15th or 18th, whatever the actual day is this year, and start in after that. So I think all that to say, start when you're ready and start when you look out over the next few months and go, yeah, that doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's no worse than other times. And the reason is you only do have access to our material, to our program for a year. Now, it shouldn't ever take anybody a year to get certified for CPWA. But if things get busy, you get thrown off track, you get distracted, whatever, you can pay, it's a little over $2,000. I think it's $2,250 for another year of access. But nobody should even need to do that, because even if you got kind of in the corner and you just didn't quite finish, because everything's downloadable, you just pass the course and then download all of our test prep and then study off your own hard drive. Again, don't share it with anybody. Study off your own hard drive until you're ready to take the test. So even that you shouldn't have an issue with. But again, I wouldn't want you to sign up and then for 3 months not do anything because you got real busy, especially if it's predictable. All right, so pass rates with these certifications, especially with IWI as of recently, they don't want us talking specifics other than to point you to the webpage at IWI. And it's a specific drop down under CPWA. You can go to that. You could even go to that right now. You got to scroll kind of all the way down near the bottom to see recent certification exam pass rates there. What I will say is I'm very, very proud of the Yale candidates. Pass rates very strong. I only wish we could tell you exactly what those pass rates are. But anyway, you can go to IWI's website to get the most recent data there. I will say, and as you've probably heard from friends and colleagues, yeah, the Yale CPWA program is the most popular. It clearly gets the vast majority of candidates. Now, for that one individual out there that's asking about live sessions and all that, Chicago Booth does have a program. That's the other big provider of CPWA, and theirs is live. You can do it in person, you can do it hybrid, you can do it online. They do have some live sessions. Now, I think we've got plenty of reasons that we are more attractive and better, but we can have that discussion offline. I don't want to oversell. I just want to let you see if you think this is the right fit for you. Nobody, I can tell you though, has the test prep resources that we have. Okay, moving on. Okay, so here is the course. Again, part 1, part 2, or part A, part B, however you want to think of it. You've got to pass an education component to earn your CPWA certification. So unlike CFA, unlike KIA, CFP and CPWA and SEMA all require what they call a registered education course. So our course is registered with IWI, meets their standards. And you're going to spend about 40 hours in our part A or part 1, the course. You're going to watch lectures of Toby Moskowitz and Richard Joyner and John Nersessian and me and a couple of others. Just like if you were in New Haven and we were all in a class, it's going to be on demand. One of the things I really love about on demand, especially when the content is challenging, is if you're live and in person, especially, or even live online, and you're like, oh, wait, Toby just said something really important, but I didn't get all of that. Or Michael Kitsis just said something that was really, really deep. Can you repeat that? Well, if you've done enough of these live, no, they're not going to repeat much of that. They don't have time. They've got a lot to get through. I've always loved that about on demand is, okay, not a problem. That was great, Michael Kitsis. I'm just going to scroll back 90 seconds and watch that again, or just do that whole section again. And I may need to do it 2 or 3 times because this is really important, but I've really never seen it in practice, but I know it's coming. So I think there's definitely a benefit to the on-demand videos. Anyway, you're going to spend about 40 hours watching videos, taking those tests I mentioned. Right now, they're by section. There are 11 of them. They range from about 12 to 36 questions each. You can take them as many times as you need to, but we need some kind of assessment since, you're not right there in front of us, like in New Haven, and we just need to make sure you're doing what we need you to do and show some basic level of competence. Now, those questions aren't going to be nearly as challenging as you're going to get in the test prep, but I still want to make sure you're paying attention, taking good notes on those 40 hours. Well, it's about 32 hours of lecture video, because that's going to set you up for success in the test prep. Because in the test prep, as we're going to talk about in a minute, you're going to be in the minutia, the weeds, the details. You really need to get solid at the course level so that you can handle that level of detail next. So I'm not even going to let you see the test prep until you pass those 11 tests at the course level. And when you do, we'll send you an email. Hey, congratulations, Jim, you passed the Yale course. We're going to send you a Yale certificate of completion for this course. And we're telling IWI that you have passed the course and you're now eligible to sit for the certification exam. Now, you're not ready to sit for it, but you're eligible, right? So now you're going to jump into all of the wonderful test prep that we have for you. And it is, again, it covers a lot of the material that you saw, the content that you saw, the education part A, but it's going to be covered in a different way. Because now once you get to part 2 or part B, it is all about the test. And so you're going to have literally like 7 hours of me going through the 11 sections and the 500 topics saying, this is what I think is important about this. This is what I think is important about this. This is hardly ever tested at all. I think you can just skim this next slide. These next 3 slides are heavily tested. So you need to be familiar with the concept. And I've shown you some examples and practice questions. And so go through this, make sure you nail this down. I think you're going to see something like this on your test. So that's what that is about. That's the core of your test prep. You do have that on that last page. You do have that custom readings. We call it a Yale CPWA online library. And that is, again, over 2,000 pages. When you need the real deeper dive, like you're in the test prep, and you just watched my video on a section and you remember, oh yeah, Steve Siegel did a video on that at the course level. I remember that was pretty interesting. And you start looking through the slides and you're like, whoa, this is not my thing. I'm not that strong. And double whoa, Jim just said, this is heavily tested. I should expect something in this area to show up on my test. Okay, go back into Steve Siegel's video again, watch that lecture again, or at least that part of the lecture. Go into the 2,000-page readings library, which is set up by section, and just read what we have. That's the deepest dive, because you may have 17 pages on something if it's really complicated. So a lot of different resources, but we've got a nice setup for you. We're going to be guided by videos from me and summary slides, or getting close to 1,000 of those now. And then dozens of test prep practice questions after each of those sections. So by the time you finish, including the one final mock exam that is timed, I at least wanted to have one format that's going to be like the exam, like timed, 4 hours, got to get it done. Got to sit still and stay focused, which is hard for a lot of people, including me. So you're going to have taken about 6 to 7 mock exams worth of practice questions if you do all of our practice questions. They're not all in mock exam form. That's the last thing we want on a certification exam like this. That worked pretty well for most of our securities exams. Just study the practice questions and solutions. Doesn't work here. These are much more challenging questions, and they are going to force you to think through in and around fact patterns and client situations. And you can't possibly see enough practice questions to do that. So the videos, the readings, the summary, the detailed summary slides with examples, that in addition to the practice questions is what you're going to need to study to master, not memorize. Memorization won't get you through this exam. You're going to have to master concepts and applications. Okay, now I'm just lecturing you, so we'll move on. Okay, well, we can see this lady smiling. I guess she feels good or she passed the exam, but regardless, it's 135 questions, 125 were scored. So you will have 10 beta non-scored items in there. Of course, you won't know which, like most of the certification, you won't know which ones those are. So I've got some study ideas in the exam prep management video that I do separate from the content. 4 hours to complete, which I already mentioned, and you can either do it at Pearson VUE in a testing center. I recommend most people do that. You can test at home or at your office online. There are some caveats to that, and so you'll see that in the course guidance we give you. Doesn't mean don't do it. It just means you need to be okay with a few things that are going to happen if you do the online version. So generally recommend you just go do Pearson VUE. Just like we all did for securities exams and other designations as well. Calculator, you will need a calculator for this exam. You'll even need a financial calculator to answer about a handful of questions. The HP Hewlett-Packard 10B2 Plus and the TI BA2 Plus, those are the most popular calculators in this program. The 17B2 Plus was probably the third most popular. Any of those will be fine. I use an HP 12C, so you're probably not old school like me. But the point is, any of these calculators work as long as it's in the candidate handbook as an approved financial calculator. Statistical calculators are not allowed. So anyway, we've got plenty of practice questions, which we think are actually more challenging than what you'll see on the exam. And as some of your friends have told you, yeah, the practice questions in the Yale program, they're definitely more challenging. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them are more challenging. The whole idea there is I want you to practice hard, and I want to make practice harder than the game. So when you get into the game, the cert exam, that it's at least a little bit of a, an exhale, like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good because the Yale questions roughed me up pretty good, but I'm feeling pretty good as I move through this one. It's not an easy test, but if I can make practice harder than the game, you're probably going to do better in the game. That's the whole idea there. So with that being said, for those of you who do join us and you're going through the test prep questions, you're like, Jim, why are you asking? Why are you doing this to me? Well, there's a reason that we're doing it to you. All right, here's that Where's My Help page. And I think this is really important because you're all going to have questions at some point. It's just what kind of questions. There's no limit to questions on administrative, logistical. I forgot my password. How much time do I have left? How do I schedule my exam? Am I studying the right thing? Here's my study plan. Does this look good? Yeah, no limits there. But where we do want to have limits is on content help. There's a number of reasons to do that. Pedagogical reasons, research reasons, efficiency reasons as well. So we did beta test that in the early days. It was actually unlimited. And then we started putting parameters on it. And 12, it could have been 13, it could have been 9 or whatever, but less than 5% of all candidates, it's actually like 2.5% and 3.5% in SEMA and CPWA respectively, asked their 12 questions. So we know I could even lower that, but I think 12 is fine. So if you have a question, you'll see in our program, you want to go to the discussion board first. I've left questions and answers up there for 3 years. If I think that they're still of help, and I think they're commonly asked questions, and a faculty member or an instructor got the student where they needed to go, the candidate where they needed to go. So I've left those up so you can do a quick search and see, I'm just really struggling with GRATs, or I just can't remember the difference between CLTs and CRTs. There's so many rules. Yeah, you want to go to discussion board and see if you can find it there first. But I encourage you, if you do have that question and it's either important in your practice or on the exam, because I told you so in my videos, then you want to use one of your 12 questions. You absolutely want to use those. Ross Richardson, a CFP and CPWA and 30-year advisor, is like me, is the instructor who helps you guys with your content questions in this program, and he is outstanding. He's led FPA retreat and had other leadership roles in the industry as well. So yeah, he's the one that you're going to go out and reach out to. And that being said, one last thought there. We always start content questions in writing, in email, because I want the formal, the kind of the hardwired answer or explanation to be in writing, so you can put that in your folder. If you're like me, if you ask the question early enough in your stay with us and you're like 3 months later or 3 weeks later, I don't even remember what I was confused about, let alone how I got unstuck. Definitely want that to be in writing so you've got it in your file folder. Ross does Zoom calls to kind of clarify things after you've put your questions in front of him and he's answered those. If you want to Zoom just to kind of kick it around, just to nail it down, he's available on certain days of the week to do that as well. Yale and Dobbs staffs are available 8 to 5 Eastern, Monday through Friday, but Canvas is actually available 7 days a week. So if you ever have a issue like, well, my videos worked fine yesterday, but they're not so great today, there are probably some reasons, either operating systems or some blockers, depending on what system you're using. And Canvas is available 7 days a week to help you there. All right, so hopefully that helps you understand. Yeah, you need to think of this as being on your own for sure. We're not priced like a degree program. This is not even for academic credit, but we do want to give you the help you need, at least most of you need to be very successful in going through. All right, I'll let you look at the great program instructors we have here and then on our website as well. I've worked with Toby. It's probably coming up on 20 years now on a number of different programs and conferences and specific research that I've been able to get him involved with. He is fabulous. Kitsis is great as well. There's a lot of great ones. These are really important, kind of goes back to the goals and objectives we have. So we are going to hit you with a pretty lengthy survey after. We just want to make sure we're always doing the best we can. We work really, really hard to make sure this is a strong program. We can never be perfect for everybody because everybody's different in terms of how they learn and what their preferences are. But we just want to make sure this is as strong as it can be. And then the whole time we've just been trying to help you figure out, look, is this the right program for you? Is it a good fit? Is flexibility, the asynchronous element, is that important for you? Customizing your own learning plan. We're going to give you guardrails and best practices, and you need to use all of the tools, as you'll see in our program. But some of you may lean more towards audio and visual. Some of you may lean more towards the practice questions. That doesn't mean you should just study practice questions. Some of you are still voracious readers. I'm finding fewer and fewer of those the longer I teach. But if you are, 2,300 pages of readings, go for it. So having all those different resources to fit your needs and preferences, I think is important. Comprehensive coverage. I have no doubt we have more coverage than anybody else, both at the course and the test prep level. But that second to the last, third to the last bullet point is very important. So even with the help that I just mentioned on the previous slide, you still got to have motivation and self-discipline. You still got to be able to lock yourself in, even though we even give you recommended study schedules, like weekly and hourly study schedules if you want them. But you've still got to do the work. And I'm going to be sending you weekly messages through the Canvas announcements page based on when you came into the program. And we're also going to send you old school manual emails once a month just to stay on top of your mind. But it's still up to you to do it. So with that, all that said, if that seems to check most of your boxes and you're ready for a challenge, Tracy would love to have you join us at Yale. All right. Couple of different ways to get in and apply. You can click on the link at our website program page, or just go to IWI's because that's where you're going to end up anyway. And then here is my information. Again, feel free to send me an email on any of this, and I'll be happy to answer by email or have a phone call with you. We've got Kelly's information here. She would be the one to reach out to regarding Yale School of Management, other Yale programs, things that are specific to Yale. But if it's regarding CMA CPWA, just go ahead and use me as a resource there. So that's all I've got, Tracy, but let's see if we can answer some more questions before we run out of time here.
We've got a couple questions. The first is, how beneficial would this coursework be for someone working as an executive in a single family office?
Yeah, I think probably very important. It depends on your role and then where you're going with that. And sometimes we don't always know, right, what our path is going to be in a company, or in this case, a single or even multifamily office. That being said, if you're exposed to a number of these different things, you may be on the trust side, you may be on the law side, you may be on the investment side. There's no telling what side you're on. But if you're interacting with the other professionals in the family office, sure would be nice to know, have a really good, solid foundation in their area too. Not that you're going to be an expert and just going through this course, but if you want to get up to speed so you understand what they're dealing with, this would probably be a really good course.
Okay, thanks. And a question coming in around exam scheduling. Is exam scheduling open throughout the year, or are they specific dates?
Good question. It's kind of a luxury we have with IWI. Yeah, it's year round. So when you finish our course and then you're going to start our test prep, let's say you spend 40 hours at the course level, and then let's just say you spend 80 or 100 or 120 hours getting ready for the exam. As you get closer, we've got some ideas on when to schedule your exam. And it's year round, so it really doesn't matter. As long as the testing center, if you choose a testing center, as long as they have a seat on the day and the time that you want, then you could test whenever. Good question.
And I think that is it for all the questions.
Okay, well, Tracy's going to wrap us up here, but I just want to say thank you for spending the time. I know we went a long way, but this is a big decision. You're going to spend, as you saw, 100, maybe 200 hours or more doing this. I want to make sure you have the information you need to make the right choice.
Thanks so much, Jim. And thanks to all of you for attending this afternoon and submitting so many great questions. For more information, you can reach out to our website or reach out to Jim or Kelly directly. This webinar, including and the slides, will be shared in coming days. And thank you for sharing your time with us.